Hello and welcome. I'm Ankit and you are watching the Daily News Simplified. Now, as the name suggests, here we try to simplify important news articles from the perspective of both prelims and mains examination. Now, today being 13th of June, we'll be covering 7 important articles. So, and also please make sure to hit the like, share, and subscribe button as it helps us keep motivated and it also helps our content reach more and more aspirants. So, without further wasting your time, let us quickly move to the first article of the day because it is June, which means the heat wave season is currently ongoing. Now, this brings our attention of whether heat wave should be included as a disaster under the purview of Disaster Management Act of the year 2005. Now, this news article, it is important from GS Paper 3 syllabus. As you can see, the syllabus highlights disaster and disaster management. Further, questions have been asked periodically on different disasters and how can government tackle these disasters effectively preventing loss of lives and also restoring the community at the earliest possible time. Case in point, this PYQ of the year 2022 on coastal erosion in India and what can be the coastal management techniques which can be adopted by the community in general. So in this regard, let us first understand what is this Disaster Management Act is all about. Now this Disaster Management Act, as you can see, was enacted in the year 2005. Now this act was felt necessary because of 1999 Odisha cyclones as well as 2004 tsunami. Now this act, it defines what is a disaster as it categorizes a catastrophe, mishap, calamity or a grave occurrence which can arise either from a natural or man-made causes. Now this disaster, it generally results into substantial loss of life, destruction of property as well as damage to the environment. Now, disaster should also be such that is way beyond the coping capacity of the community. Hence, if all these three conditions are satisfied, a disaster is notified as a natural disaster. Now, under this purview, the purview of this act, there are currently 12 disasters which are categorized as a disaster. Now, these include cyclones, tsunamis to earthquake as well. However, today's article highlights that heat wave has not been added under the purview of Disaster Management Act for various reasons which we'll be discussing later on. Now, to enable government to undertake disaster management activities, this act also provides for constitution or institution of two funds. Now, these two funds are called National Disaster Response Fund, which is instituted at the level of union government, whereas at the state level, State Disaster Response Fund have also been formed. Now, money is drawn from these two accounts, which enables the government to undertake disaster relief activities. Now, this NDRF, the fund is supplemented by 100% of funds which is provided by the central government. Whereas for the State Disaster Response Fund, 25% of the fund is provided by the state government and the rest is provided by the union or the central government. Understood? Now, if any disaster were to happen, the money primarily is drawn from these State Disaster Response Fund by the state government. And if this amount is felt inefficient or insufficient, the required fund is then sought from the National Disaster Response Fund. So you can understand in case of undertaking disaster management activities for heat wave, the state governments currently are unable to use funds from either SDRF or NDRF. Why? Because heat waves are not categorized as a disaster under the Disaster Management Act. Understood? Now let us understand what is a phenomena of heat wave. Now this heat wave, it is generally categorized as an abnormally high temperatures which we witnessed during the period of March to June, which can sometime extend even up till July. Now, this prevailing heat wave condition is more common in northern parts of the country, especially in the plain region of Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, etc. And this is a quite a significant disaster because it can lead to loss of life of people, and also it can reduce the productivity of agriculture sector, which significantly hampers the income generating activities of a large section of population. Now, there are various criteria of when a government can announce or declare a heat wave condition. Now, for that, the primarily condition is that the temperature should be more than 40 degrees centigrade in plains, more than 37 degrees centigrade in coastal areas, as well as more than 30 degrees centigrade in hilly regions. Now, only after the temperatures have gone beyond these particular temperatures can the government declare heat wave. But after that, there are also two important criteria. The first is that the temperature have to be more than the normal temperatures in general. For example, whenever the temperature is more than 4.5 to 6.4 degrees centigrade, this is categorized as a heat wave incident. On the other hand, if the temperature shoots more than 6.4 degrees centigrade, this is categorized as a severe heat wave condition. Now, there is also a second criteria, and this is the departure from actual maximum temperature. Because if the temperature is more than 45 degrees centigrade, this is categorized as a heat wave. And whenever the temperature exceeds 47 degrees centigrade, it is categorized as a severe heat wave. So you can understand heat wave can be declared based on two different parameters. First is departure from normal temperature and based on actual maximum temperatures. Now this heat wave, they can form under various conditions. So let us understand what are favorable conditions which promote formation of or prevalence of heat wave in any region. Now the first is the prevalence or presence of hot air in the region. This hot air can either be present naturally or can be transported from other area into a prevailing area. Further, presence of moisture in any region, it reduces the amount of temperature rise. So naturally, in absence of moisture, it promotes the rise of temperature in general. Additionally, whenever there is a cloudless sky, the amount of sun insolation in these areas are quite high, which again promotes the rise of temperature way beyond the normal temperature figures. Additionally, anticyclonic formation promotes convergence of air in a region, and it does not promote divergence of air, which is commonly associated with the cyclonic phenomena. So this divergence of air in near the ground levels, that is formation of anticyclonic formation, it promotes the rise in temperature in any particular area. So these four are the favorable conditions which promote or encourage the formation of heat waves in any area. Now let us understand how heat wave impacts various sections of the society. Probably the most important impact of heat wave is the impact on human health. Because under excessive temperature conditions, we have seen people, they get struck by heat cramps, exhaustion due to excessive sweating, as well as it can also lead to stroke, which is caused by increased temperatures. Now these are quite dangerous for a human health. Hence, this is a severe impact of heat wave on human health. Now naturally, heat wave, it also impacts the agricultural sector, because first and probably the most important factor is that it reduces the growth of plants in any region, in addition to causing excessive stress in the livestock sector. So during this incident, first of all, it reduces the productivity of agricultural crops, and it also reduces the productivity of country's livestock, which again is an important economic activity. Additionally, it can also exacerbate conditions such as drought and wildfires, which again negatively impacts the agricultural sector. Further, during heat wave incidents, we have seen that there is a significant rise in power demand across the country. So naturally, this abnormal rise in power demand, it puts pressure on our power infrastructure. That is, the power generating plants, they run overtime, and the transmission lines, due to excessive heat, their capacity to transmit power from one area to other, it significantly reduces. So this elongated period of heat wave, it also negatively impacts our country's energy sector, and it reduces our energy security in general. However, this heat wave incident is a normal incident across the periods between March to June, and this occurs almost every year. And this has been the reason why Disaster Management Act, it does not include heat wave under its purview. However, with impending climate change in the past decade or so, we have seen both increase in frequency and severity in the incidents of heat wave. And this has been because of multiple reasons. First is due to increase in urbanization across the country. We have seen quality of built environment changing from more green oriented environment to a concrete led environment, especially in the urban areas. And this quality of built environment, especially in urban areas, gives rise to an effect called urban heat island effect. Because as you can understand, generally the temperatures in the urban area, they are quite high as compared to rural areas. And this is further enhanced because of presence of automobiles and other industrial sector in the urban areas, which promotes the emission of greenhouse gases. Now, all these factors act together to increase the phenomena what is called as an urban heat island effect. Further, in urban areas, we have also witnessed people such as daily wages, roadside vendors, and these vendors, they have primarily work in an outside environment. So all these employment types, such as these vulnerable section, they form the vulnerable community who are more vulnerable to the incidences of heat wave as against people who work in close quarters. Further, as we have seen with increased mechanization in general, people in general have been living sedentary lifestyle. So because of this, their fitness level over a period of time has reduced, which again increases the vulnerability to extreme heat stress environments. Additionally, due to the phenomena of climate change, we have witnessed increase in temperature or rise in temperature over a period of decades. Now, all these factors add together have resulted into increasing frequency and increasing severity of heat wave incidents, which has brought back our attention to including this heat wave into the purview of Disaster Management Act of 2005. Because to deal with heat wave, government undertakes what are called as heat action plans. Now, these heat action plans, it aim to increase preparedness and also reduce the adverse impact of heat wave incidents. Now, how government increases preparedness and reduces the adverse impact? It is done through increase in forecasting and early warning systems. Because presence of forecasting methods and early warning system, it enables the government to warn people in general about the impending heat wave incidents. Further, these heat action plans, they are also aimed at educating people about the risks which are associated with heat wave incidents. Further, people are made aware about how can they try to reduce the impact of heat wave by adopting different lifestyle in general. Further, the government also constructs heat shelter, which are aimed primarily to protect people who form the vulnerable section of society. For example, daily wages, roadside vendors, as well as homeless people. Also, this heat wave action plans, they also give directives to hospital, which enable these hospitals to increase their supplies as well as augment their manpower in order to deal with heat wave incidents and the resulted increase in patient load. Also, what we have seen that government is undertaking long-term urban planning strategies, which means increasing the green cover over the urban areas or reducing the amount of greenhouse gas emission, such as promotion of use of electric vehicles. Further, this heat wave action plan, they also delineate the roles and responsibilities of various line departments, such as health department of government, police, fire department, because all these departments, they work in togetherness to deal with incidences of heat wave and their resulted consequences. So naturally, you can understand, in order to take all these actions, government requires money. And this money has not been provided to the governments by the help of NDRF and SDRF, because as I've already highlighted, heat waves, they are not included under the ambit of Disaster Management Act of the year 2005. So let us understand what are the reasons which prohibit government from notifying heat wave as a notified disaster under the Disaster Management Act of the year 2005. Now, the first reason in this regard is the reluctance of country's finance commission. Because the recent finance commission, that was 15th finance commission, it highlighted that the Disaster Management Act, it already categorizes 12 disasters, and this covers the need of states to a large extent. However, understanding that the heat wave is a severe disaster, hence in this regard, the Finance Commission, it provided an enabling provision which enabled state governments to draw 10% of the funds from State Disaster Response Fund in order to deal with local disasters. Now, using this prevailing enabling provision, state governments such as Uttar Pradesh, Kerala, Haryana, Odisha, they've used these funds to provide for heat wave related welfare work. Further, there are also financial implications which prohibit the government from adding heat wave into the purview of Disaster Management Act. Because if government were to add heat wave into Disaster Management Act, then for every related debt, the government will have to provide rupees 4 lakh in compensation to persons who have been affected by heat wave incidents. And this amount is a significant amount whenever we add huge number of deaths due to heat wave incidents. So this can impose a significant amount of fiscal burden on any government. Further, it is quite difficult for a government to attribute deaths related to heat wave incident, because most deaths which occur during the heat wave episode, they can be also related to existing preconditions in any human, and this can be increased due to prevailing heat waves. So you can understand, because of reluctance of finance commission, financial implication of the government, and difficulty in attributing deaths to heat wave incidents are the significant roadblocks for the government before admitting heat wave into the purview of Disaster Management Act. So this was all for today's discussion on the first article, and with this we move to second article, which highlights the need for opposition parties in a democratic setup. Now, why are we discussing this article? Because as you can see, Indian Express in its op-ed section highlights the importance of opposition parties in a democratic setup. Further, this opposition party, they play a key role in functioning of the parliament. Hence, this topic is important from GS paper 2 syllabus. Also, as you can see, in UPSC mains examinations, especially GS paper 2, in the year of 2016, there appeared a question on how Indian party system is witnessing a phase of transformation or transition. So this article becomes important from GS paper 2 perspective. So in this regard, let us understand why is the role of opposition important in a democratic setup like India. Now, as you can understand, in any democratic setup, it is very much essential for any section of society to check the policies of the government. For example, whenever the government misuses its power, then the opposition, it can play a key role in ensuring checks and balances in an economy. In a political system. Further, this role of opposition, it ensures scrutinizing of any government policy, which ensures that government power is having adequate balances in a form of stable opposition. Now, how opposition ensures stability and checks and balances of the government? The most important aspect of opposition is the role of opposition leader in India. Because first of all, through Act, which is called as Salary and Allowances of Leader of Opposition Act of the year 1977, it provides the statutory recognition to the office of opposition leader. Further, as you can understand, this opposition leader or leader of opposition, he plays a key role in selection of heads of various bodies of the government. For example, Central Bureau of Investigation, Central Vigilance Commission, Central Information Commission, National Human Rights Commission, as well as selection of election commissioners of India. The opposition leader, they play a key role. Also, as you can understand, opposition leader, they form part of Public Accounts Committee. As a member of the opposition, they are selected as a chairperson of Public Accounts Committee. Further, traditionally, that is by convention, the post of deputy speaker in the Lok Sabha, it is also given to a member of opposition party as well. So this is what highlights the importance of the role of leader of opposition in a democratic setup. Also, as you can understand, through use of various parliamentary devices such as question hour, debates, discussion, the opposition, it ensures the accountability of the government, they're discharging their powers in a constitutionally delineated role as possible. Further, opposition also plays a key role in mobilizing the public opinion, which we saw recently. As the opposition, it was quite successful in mobilizing the public opinion against the enacted farm bills of the union government. And because of negative public opinion, the government of the day, it was forced to revoke the provisions of Farm Law Bills Amendment Act. Further, as you can highlight, by mobilizing public opinion, the opposition, it also plays a key role in providing the critique to the policy of the government. And in this regard, the opposition, it also comes up with an alternative policy directions, which means the opposition suggests that government is not doing X amount of policy properly, and if they were come to power, they'll do this policy in an entirely different manner. So you can understand this is what the importance of democracy, opposition is in a democratic setup like India. So in this regard, let us understand what should be the ways in order to empower opposition in India. And the first suggestion in this regard is to allocate more time to the members of the opposition parties in order to speak and participate in parliamentary activities. Further, as we have witnessed in Western countries like UK, there is a convention that the person who is elected as a speaker, they resign from party membership. And this provision, it ensures that the speaker is able to discharge his or her responsibilities in a neutral manner. So such conventions can also be promoted in a setup like India, which means that the speaker will have to forego his party membership once he or she is elected to the office of speaker. Additionally, it should be made mandatory for the government to answer all the questions which have been raised by members who form the opposition parties in general. Further, the members of opposition, they should also make sure to voice their opinion and ideas in the meetings of parliamentary committee, because these parliamentary committee, they play a key role in analyzing or suggesting the reforms in government enacted policies and bills in general. So these were the 4 suggestions that can be undertaken in order to empower the opposition parties in India. So with this, we move to next article of the day, which you can see is a quite significant article from the perspective of space sector. Because in this article, it highlights that SpaceX, it has successfully tried the test flight of its Starship space launch vehicle. Now, this launch vehicle has a potential to revolutionize space travel and exploration, as it aims to reduce significantly the cost of space travel. Now, from UPSC perspective, this news article is important from GS Paper 3 syllabus, because as you can see, the syllabus highlights awareness in the field of space. Further, a related question appeared in the mains of the year 2022 because you can see the question, it appeared on James Webb Space Telescope. So you can expect a similar question on the developments related to space launch vehicles such as this Starship vehicle. So in this regard, let us understand why is this Starship vehicle more important. Now, as you can see in terms of size, this Starship launch vehicle is the largest ever to be constructed by humans because it stands nearly 120-meter tall, which is significantly taller than the Saturn V rocket, which was used to send astronauts into the moon surface, such as Neil Armstrong. Further, the existing launch system, which is used by NASA, that is Space Launch System, it is also significantly smaller than this Starship. Now, to put things in perspective, India's Qutub Minar, which is situated in Delhi, it is about 72.5 meters tall. So you can understand the size of Starship related to or relative to that of Qutub Minar. So you can understand this is an enormous space launch vehicle. Now this space launch vehicle, it is provided as a boost by super heavy launch system, which is fired by a 33 Raptor engines. Now these Raptor engines, they use liquid oxygen as oxidizer, as well as it is fueled by liquid methane, which is used as a fuel. Now using the mixture of liquid oxygen and methane in a ratio of 3.6:1, this rocket, it generates as much as 74 mega newtons meter of thrust. Now to put things in perspective, the space launch vehicle, which is used by NASA currently, it generates 39 mega newton of thrust, and as compared to the Saturn V rocket, this generated 35 mega newtons of thrust. So in terms of absolute power, the SpaceX Starship, it is quite more than that of SLS and Saturn V rocket. Now this is a two-stage rocket which is used to carry crew and cargo into outer space, and not just outer space but also to other planets such as Moon and Mars. Now this development is quite significant as it has certain benefits as well. First of all, these Starship, it is made up of reusable components which enable these Starship to be, or the components to be reused again and again. So this naturally, you can understand, reduces the overall cost attached with the space mission, which in general is quite huge. Further, as I have already highlighted, this Starship, it provides for larger payloads. For example, this Starship, it will be able to carry 150 tons of payload to low Earth orbit, and also it can carry about 100 tons of payload to other planets such as Mars or to lunar surface. Now to put things in perspective, the NASA's space shuttle program, it was able to carry 25 tons of payload. So you can understand this Starship, it is able to carry larger payloads, which makes it important for other uses as well. Further, the company SpaceX is also expected to provide for air-to-air refueling of the outer or core sectors of the Starship, because like planes or military planes, this Starship, it can be fueled by other Starships in the air itself. So all these things in combined, it reduces the cost of space travel in general. Further, by enabling Starship to carry larger payloads, it is quite significant in terms of space travel. Because first of all, companies or space exploration organizations, they can build larger space telescopes, which will enable these organizations to undertake space exploration more comprehensively. Further, these telescopes, they can also be constructed by using cheaper and heavier materials, which will overall reduce the cost of space exploration missions. Further, we can send bigger equipments to other planets as well, such as drilling equipments, which will enable these agencies to undertake exploration of components of various different planets as well. Further, as these are reusable in nature, then these launch vehicles can also be able to bring samples of other planets back to Earth as well. And this will promote the organization to know more about the origins of our solar system as well as origin of human life on the Earth. So these were the significant benefits of Starship and why the Starship is a significant development in the space sector in general. So with this, we move to next set of articles. Now let us move to the next set of articles, the first of which you can see appeared in the Indian Express newspaper. Now this news article highlights that President of India has turned down the plea for mercy by a Lashkar-e-Toiba terrorist who was responsible for attack on the Red Fort located in Delhi back in the year 2000. Now this news article is important from GS paper 2 perspective because as you can see syllabus highlights functioning of the executive. Also, President is the part of Indian executive. Also, questions related to power of President in various regards have been asked by UPSC specifically in the year 2020. So, in this regard, let us understand what is the power of the President of India. Now, Article 72 of the Indian Constitution, it empowers the President to grant pardons, commutation, remission, respite and reprieve to any convict in general. Now, this is applicable in all cases, be it cases related to court martial or cases which are in which the convict is sentenced to death. So, in this regard, President can provide pardon, which means it can completely absolve the convict of any crime, which means the convict will be set free post he or she receives pardon from the President. Further, President of India also provides for commutation of sentences, which mean reducing the amount of punishment by reducing the punishment or changing the punishment to its lighter form. For example, if a convict is sentenced to death and if he or she is provided with commutation, which means that this death sentence will be then converted into life imprisonment or lower quantum of imprisonment. Further, if a convict is provided with remission of sentences, this means that the duration of punishment will be reduced. For example, if a convict is sentenced to 2 years of imprisonment and if he or she is provided remission by the President, then the amount of sentence will be reduced to 1 year in general. And these are just examples. Further, by providing respite, the President can lesser the amount of sentence to any convict based on new developments, such as if the convict becomes person with disability, or if the convict becomes pregnant during the incarceration period, then that convict can be granted as a respite by the President of India. Further, the President of India can also provide reprieve, which means temporary stay in the execution of the sentence, which enables, for example, a convict who has been convicted of death sentence to pursue various other legal amenities. So these are the powers that are given to President of India by the Article 72 of the Indian Constitution. Now in this regard, Supreme Court has made several observations in general. For example, in Maruram versus Union of India case, the Supreme Court highlighted that the President must exercise the power to grant pardons based on the advice of Council of Ministers. Whereas in the Kehar Singh case of the year 1998, the Supreme Court highlighted or gave various guidelines. For example, Supreme Court said that the petitioner, when he or she seeks the power to reconsider his or her sentence, then it does not give the petitioner the right to seek oral hearing from the President himself or herself. Whereas the President in this regard can examine the evidence from the start, that without considering the view taken by the court in general. Further, the power of giving pardons which is given to the President is not the power which is exercised by the President on his or her sole discretion. Rather, this power is exercised by the Parliament on the advice of Union Council of Ministers. Additionally, the exercise of power by the President, it is also subjected to the provisions of judicial review, especially when the President exercises the power in an arbitrary manner or in an irrational manner. Further, whenever President exercises this power in malafide or discriminatory manner, then the petitioner can also seek judicial review through the higher courts in the country. So, based on this information, let us now solve the practice question. Consider the following statements about the pardoning power of the Indian President. The first statement, President can decide on the mercy petition based on his discretion, which you have already understood is an incorrect statement, because President can decide on this petition based on the recommendation or the advice of Union Cabinet. Further, there is no scope for judicial review of President decision on the mercy petition, which again is an incorrect statement, because Keher Singh case, or in this case, the Supreme Court highlighted that whenever the exercise of power by President is in arbitrary, irrational or malafide manner, then the petitioner can sought judicial review based on the decision of the President. Further, remission involves stay on the execution of the sentence for a temporary period, which again is incorrect, because the stay on the execution of sentence can be done through the provision of reprieve and not remission. As remission, it reduces the quantum of punishment, that is, from 2 years the punishment can be reduced to a period of 1 year. Understood? So as all these three statements are incorrect, hence option D is the right answer to this practice question. With this, we move to another article which you can see appeared in the Hindu newspaper. Now this newspaper article, it highlights that the epidemic of fatty liver disease is on a rise, and this is due to non-alcoholic factors. Now this article is important from GS paper 3 perspective, because the syllabus highlights awareness in the field of biotechnology. Further, various diseases have been asked by UPSC before in the prelims examination. For example, this question in the year 2019. Now the fatty liver disease is a disease which is caused by inflammation of liver, which can be caused by deposition of fats in the liver cells. Now this is a prevailing condition which, if not taken care of, can ultimately lead to fibrosis, cirrhosis or cancer in the liver. So this is a significant disease which, if not taken care of, can lead to an epidemic in India. Now let us understand more about this fatty liver disease. And as you can see, this disease is characterized by liver inflammation and scarring, which is predominantly associated with excessive use or excessive consumption of alcohol. But recently, we have also found out that there are various non-alcoholic factors which give rise to fatty liver disease. For example, diabetes. And this phenomena, it is closely related to metabolic health, cardiac health, as well as can risk to developing of cancers as well. Because for example, in case of diabetes, the ability of body to generate insulin, it gets diminished. So whenever a person consumes excessive amount of carbohydrates, it leads to insulin resistance in body, which means it lowers the metabolism which can generate insulin. So in this case, the excessive glucose which is present in the blood system, it gets deposited into the liver in form of fats. And this can create the condition of fatty liver disease. Now it is quite important because the symptoms of this disease, it does not show up in an initial stage and can only be found out through a process of diagnosis. Further, in terms of prevalence, it is found in as much as 38.6% of adults and as much as 36% of obese children in India. So based on this information, let us now solve the practice question. Now consider the following statements. Liver, it helps in maintaining glucose homeostasis, that is levels of glucose, by storing glucose and releasing it in the bloodstream whenever it is needed. Now this process of liver is in a normal process, which is then hampered by a process called insulin resistance, which causes deposition of fat in liver cells. Further, insulin resistance, it promotes the conversion of excess glucose into fatty acids, which are then stored into liver, which again, as I've highlighted here, is a correct statement. Because insulin resistance, it does not enable the body to convert these glucose into energy cells. Whereas the excessive glucose which is present in the body then gets deposited into liver, causing fatty liver disease. Further, fatty liver disease presents noticeable symptoms in its early stage, making the detection easy, which you can understand is an incorrect statement because there is usually no warning or symptoms in the early stage of this disease, and this disease is usually diagnosed at an advanced stage. So, how many of the above statement given above is or are correct? Which means two statements are correct. Hence, option B is the right answer. Now, let us move to the third article of the day, which you can see appeared in the Hindu newspaper as well as in the Indian Express newspaper as well. Now, this news article, it highlights that India has emerged as world's second largest emitter of the nitrous oxide gas. Now, this gas is a significant environment pollutant, which makes it important from GS Paper 3 syllabus. Further, questions on various greenhouse gases such as nitrous oxide and methane have been asked by UPSC recently in the prelims of the year 2022. So, in this regard, let us know more about nitrous oxide. Now, this gas is commonly known as laughing gas because of its various different characteristics. Further, at room temperature, this gas acts as a colorless and non-flammable gas which has a slight sweet scent and taste. Whereas at elevated temperature, this gas can act as a powerful oxidizer which makes it used as a rocket propellant as well. Further, these gases can be emitted from both natural as well as anthropogenic sources. For example, this gas can be emitted by soils, as this are emitted through release of microbial process in general. Further, this gas can also be emitted by water bodies such as oceans, river, as well as estuaries. Whereas in terms of anthropogenic causes, the largest amount of emitter of this gas is agricultural sector, which is responsible for emission of as much as 75% of nitrous oxide. Whereas combustion of fossil fuels as well as industrial processes, they also emit significant amount of nitrous gases in general. Now, this gas also has various different uses as well. For example, this is used as an anesthetic or an analgesic gas because it has a property that enables it to reduce the pain of patients. Further, as I've already highlighted, as this gas at an elevated temperature acts as a powerful oxidizer, hence these are also used as a rocket propellant. Further, these gases are used predominantly in food industry, which makes these gas as a good aerosol, which means in generating foams as well as making salad dressings, these are permanently used as they have good aerosol properties. Additionally, internal combustion engines, when these gases are used in internal combustion engine, it also enhances the performance of engines, making the car go more faster. And I'm sure you must have seen the use of these gases in movies like Fast and Furious. Further, these gases also play a key role in manufacturing of semiconductor in general. So based on this information, let us now solve the practice question with reference to nitrous oxide. Consider the following statement. The first statement, this gas has a less warming potential than carbon dioxide over a long period of time. Now, as far as generation of greenhouse gases, this nitrous oxide has as much as 300 times more potential of trapping heat than the carbon dioxide gas, which makes statement 1 incorrect. Now, the second statement, this gas is used as an anesthetic as well as an analgesic drug, which you can see is a correct statement because this gas has a pain relieving capabilities, which makes it important for the use in healthcare sector. Further, natural soils release nitrous oxides due to microbial process, which is a correct statement as I've highlighted here. So how many of the statements given above is or are correct? As I have already highlighted, first statement only is correct. Hence option B, that is two options are correct. So let us now move to the last article of the day, which you can see appeared in the Hindu as well as Indian Express newspaper. Now this article highlights that elephants, they can call each other by name using these rumbles, which are the voices of elephants. Now, this study was conducted by an artificial intelligence tool, which was able to gauge that these rumbles are unique in nature, which means that elephants, they have a distinctive name like rumbles for individual elephants in general, which enables these elephants to contact individual elephants in a separate manner. Now, this has significant impact on their social as well as cognitive recognition abilities, as it enables the elephants to form social bonds with other elephants. Now, why are we discussing elephants? Because you can see in the prelims of the year 2020, a question appeared on behavioral patterns of Indian elephants. So, in this regard, let us understand more about elephants in general. Now, these elephants, they are known as keystone species because they play an important role in maintaining the forest ecosystem. For example, they consume large quantities of vegetation on a daily basis, which helps them shape the density of vegetation in any area. As they eat large amount of vegetation, which enables these elephants to clear forest, which allows then the sunlight to reach the lower surface of the forest. And this process, it promotes the growth of natural or regeneration of natural forest. Further, these elephants, they also dig water during the dry periods, which enables the access of water to other wildlife as well as to other elephants in general. Further, India also has the largest population of wild Asian elephants, as India constitute about 60% of global population of wild Asian elephants. And based on the numbers of different states, Karnataka has largest amount of elephants, which is followed by Assam and then Kerala. Now, the conservation status of wild Asian elephants or other elephants in general are as follows. Based on the IUCN Red List, the African forest elephants, they are categorized as critically endangered, whereas African savanna elephants and Asian elephants, which are found in India, they are categorized as endangered. Whereas, as for the provisions of Wildlife Protection Act, the elephants are scheduled as Schedule 1 animals, which makes illegal the hunting of elephants in India. So, based on this information, let us now solve the practice question. The first statement: elephants are known to use individual names not involving imitations to interact with other species, which again is a correct statement, as the news article also highlights that elephants and their rumbles, they are unique in nature, which makes or enables these elephants to communicate with other elephants. The second statement: Sumbaru National Reserve for elephants, it is situated in Chhattisgarh, India, which again is an incorrect statement, because today's news article, it highlights two national parks which are located in Kenya, that is Amboseli National Park as well as Sumbaru National Park. Now, these national parks, they are not located in India but in Kenya. So, second statement here is incorrect. The third statement: as per the IUCN Red List, the Asian elephants, they are categorized as critically endangered, which again is incorrect, because Asian elephants, according to IUCN Red List, they are categorized as endangered, whereas the African forest elephant are categorized as critically endangered. Now, as only one statement is correct, hence option A is the right answer to this practice question. So, with this, we conclude our today's session of Daily News Simplified, and we'll see you again tomorrow at 6 p.m. sharp with new set of articles based on tomorrow's newspaper. So, please make sure to study until that time, and we'll see you again tomorrow at 6. So, until then, I bid you a very good night.